Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the Combined Impact podcast. I'm Nagila and I'm joined by Shari. And today we are going to be talking about body hair and grooming. But before we get into that, we wanted to talk about some feedback or stuff that we talked about with people regarding the last episode on elitism.
Yeah, because that was a very interesting... Yeah, I mean, it was a long episode, as you guys could see. It was, for us, also very confronting in different ways, but also it was... Yeah, it's a very loaded theme, so we had a lot of conversations with people about this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like before, or the episodes before, we got feedback from people, but this time we got a lot of conversations with people, so that was very interesting.
Yeah, and it's obviously we've had conversations with multiple people, and multiple people have different perspectives when it comes to this topic, especially coming from different levels of education. So of course, like, different people have different experiences, so it's very interesting seeing it from the viewpoints of all those different layers of education and, for example, video, HAVO. So yeah.
One theme that I realized came up a lot was that a lot of us didn't realize what we were doing, that we're perpetuating elitism.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of that does have to do with internalized elitism and just doing things because it's always been that way. People all never really react to it. Like, oh, whoa, why did you say that? Because it's considered normal. And in fact, it isn't normal.
Yeah, I think it really isn't. I think in that sense, maybe you can like compare it, for example, when like women have conversations about never feeling safe when they go outside the house, compared to when men are like, oh really, what? I've never had to think about that.
People catcall you on the street.
Yeah, what the hell? I've never had that experience. Like, well.
Yeah.
So I think, it's really confronting sowieso, but it's also very important, I think, to also realize and see in the many ways and very subtle ways too that we portray elitism.
Yeah, and an easy way to do that is just to think to yourself, like, in what ways have you been treated not so cool by other people in terms of elitism? How did they do it? Why did they do it? And then when you realize all of that, think to yourself, how have you done the same thing to somebody else in a different way?
Yeah, like how you portray that. Have you been like elitist? Have you been gatekeepy in any way? Because I think elitism really does perpetuate a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
So,
and the answer to that is yes. We have all done that.
Like, how many times have you think that you deserve something over someone else because you've worked harder for it in your eyes?
Yeah.
So it's there are many layers and levels to this, and of course we can't ever. Yeah, we didn't get to talk about all of it, of course. But I think it's important to remember or to realize also, I mean, we all, literally every single one of us do perpetuate elitism in a way or another, because that is what the system requires of us, right? It asks us to be elitist, to compete against each other, to basically create this illusion that some people are more deserving than others, because otherwise how are we going to justify why not everyone is treated equally, right? You have to justify it in some way, quote unquote. So I think that's something to also remember when it comes to that. It's
and if it's so ingrained, that makes it easy for everybody to keep perpetuating it and to keep the system in place.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of the sentiments I constantly hear, for example, it's like, oh yeah, a minimum wage worker should be getting paid more because they didn't work hard for it.
Yeah, or they didn't do their best at school, or they just come up with literally any excuse.
Yeah, and
I think that's also why so many people have a problem with socialism, because they want to keep that system in place, and they want to keep everything as elitist as possible.
Yeah, they want to be treated better than others. It's just because, that's what we grow up with, thinking that you are more deserving if you Yeah, or if you're a little bit smarter. I don't know. We're going back into the discussion.
Yeah. But we are going to do another episode about this in which we zoom out, and now we focused a lot on
our experience.
Yes, our experience, stuff like that. But we are going to do a different episode in which we talk about this on a larger scale.
Yeah,
so
societal.
All of that stuff. So
Macro.
we should stop ourselves now.
Jesus, we're really bad at this. But yeah, so that was our recap of last week's episode. I really do hope, because I know a lot of people like this, like they were really gonna take time with this episode, so a lot of people haven't even listened to it yet. So I hope by the time they do, we can have more conversations, and it's just it's very important to have, and hopefully we can bring more light to this in a next segment of elitism, which will be in the future. So, with that being said, today we're going to move on to body hair and grooming.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep it light. We're not gonna be too political about it.
Well, technically you, because I will be sitting this episode out, so I will not be joining Ila during this segment, basically. So I will see you guys next time. But I do know Ila has a very interesting views on this, and I know she could talk about this forever. So I'm excited to see what you do with this one.
I'll try to keep it very not scientific, because I know that I could go into hair follicles and what they're made of and why is different hair different. But I'll not do that this episode. I'll keep it to myself. Maybe I'll do a Twitter live about body hair. But I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoy talking about it.
Alright guys, let's just get into it.
I know that I literally just said that I'm not gonna get into the scientific part of body hair, but I did want to start with just what even is the point of body hair. I do have to preface this by saying that a lot of this is theorized, so it's not a fact that this is the function of the body hair, but some of the theories are pretty good and some of them are not as well supported, I guess. But we'll just start from the head down. So head hair, they theorize that it's denser and thicker than the rest of your body hair and longer, because when we started walking upright, we needed protection from the sun, which would have hit our head the most for some reason, because the sun does hit the rest of your body. Anyway, getting into that already. But so we have head hair to protect us from the sun. And then you have eyebrows and eyelashes, which is pretty... it's a pretty solid theory, because you don't want sweats to get into your eyes. You don't want little particles of dust or insects or stuff like that to get into your eyes. You have to protect that vulnerable part of your face, which is the eyes. So you have those hairs to protect it, but then you have the beard. And I couldn't find very conclusive information on the function of a beard. And the only thing that I could really find was that it's kind of a signal of how much testosterone a person has, and that you could use that signal if you are attracted to people who are very masculine presenting. Then you could be like, oh, hey, this person has a lot of testosterone because they have a gigantic beard. Then we go down to the armpit hair and the pubic hair, which I'm gonna lump together, even though it's not necessarily in the same region. But I do want to put them together because they have the same theories. And I'll start with the first one, which is that they theorize that it is thicker and lusher than the rest of your body hair, except for the head and the beard, because they catch and distribute pheromones. And people, or organisms in general, use pheromones as a type of signaling to hopefully get a mate. However, the only problem with this is that we haven't actually found pheromones in humans, so I don't know how this theory holds up. But another theory that I found, which I prefer, is that the hair basically just functions as a buffer between the two layers of skin, because your armpits and between your legs is very, constantly folded, and the skin is constantly rubbing against itself. So to protect skin-on-skin contact and constant rubbing, then you have a buffer of hair, and that kind of provides relief. Then you have the rest of your body hair, which is usually finer and more dispersed and not as long or thick. And the theory that I found for this one was that it keeps insects away from like getting to your skin and biting you or stinging you. And another, last but not least, the theory on pubic hair, especially for people with vaginas, is just to keep stuff from getting inside your body, keep unwanted stuff from getting inside your body. However, having said all of that, we've basically outgrown the need for body hair, because if you need to protect your head, you could just wear a hat. If you need to protect yourself from insects, island people, hello, mosquitoes, fucking devil, you could just wear longer clothes, or you could spray something on your skin and then it repels the insects and boom, you're saved. If you want to stop stuff from getting inside of your body in the vaginal area, then you could put on underwear and problem solved. So now the only thing that's left is, since the function of the body hair isn't as important anymore, then we're left to just decide for ourselves what it means to us, what we want to do with it. For a lot of people, it has become a form of self-expression, which I think is beautiful, and I prefer to lean into that. But it's also become weirdly politicized. Someone decided at some point that feminine-presenting people should look a certain way, and part of that look is having or not having certain body hairs. And the same counts for masculine-presenting people. And generally, people around the world have come to accept that feminine-presenting people should have as little body hair as possible all over the body except on the head, and that masculine-presenting people are allowed to have as much body hair as they want, except in certain places, like on the back, or I don't know where else, but that also that they should have a thick beard, or that they should have chest hair. And it even goes as far as to give people the idea that they're allowed to assume someone's sexuality based on if they choose to remove hair or if they choose to leave hair as it grows. So that's how it became weirdly politicized. Like, how are you supposed to be able to guess that based on if somebody chooses to have or not have hair? And this is literally made up, because in some cultures, it's even celebrated when women have facial hair, when in other cultures it's heavily shamed and you shouldn't ever have facial hair and you should pluck it as soon as you see one. And it doesn't make any sense at all, because it just grows, right? It's your body, and if hair grows there, then why is it bad or good in any way? And we have really internalized all of this when we were growing up. Maybe even if your parents were super like hippy-dippy, like my mom was, in the sense that she says if it grows on your body, just leave it. There's no reason to remove it. It grows naturally, right? So why would you have to remove any of it? But even with all of that, you're still part of a society in which most people do encourage grooming in a very specific way, according to if you're accepted by other people as a feminine person or a masculine person. So it's not only your upbringing at home, but it's also your upbringing generally in society. And as we have internalized all of this, this is something that me and Shadi were talking about in preparation for this episode. It's sort of become like a point system, because as a quote-unquote woman, we were expected to look a certain way, to behave a certain way, to speak in a certain way, to be interested in certain things. And if you're not, for example, interested in all of the feminine things, and you don't necessarily always dress in a feminine way, and maybe you don't behave in a feminine way either, then the only thing you have left is your hair. And then, I mean, it is something that's pretty easy to manipulate. So you can have longer hair and the next day you have like totally short hair, or you can have body hair and then the next day you shaved it all off. So from one day to the other, you can suddenly become more feminine or less feminine. So a lot of people do use it as a sort of shield or mask to protect themselves from other people's judgment. And that's purely based on what society expects feminine presenting people and masculine presenting people to look like. So some people are also, for example, more in touch with their feminine energy. I do prefer to use that term, like feminine energy and masculine energy and what that means to you. But in any case, some people or some male presenting people are more in touch with some feminine energy in a different sense. And then they feel like they should compensate that with, for example, having ultra masculine clothes or a really big long beard, just so they're not considered to be gay again. Why would you assume somebody's sexuality based on the way that they choose to present themselves? But anyway, so out of fear of being considered gay, then they will be hyper masculine in the way that they choose to present outward. One of the weirdest arguments that I heard is that it's unhygienic to have body hair. And this is one thing that actually a lot of people choose to use as an argument against having body hair. And the weird thing about this is that it's only unhygienic for feminine presenting people to have body hair, but when masculine presenting people have the same amount or even more body hair, that's not considered unhygienic at all. So if you really think about it, that argument isn't based in anything except for just it's an easy thing to point to when you have to justify why you don't want certain people to have body hair and for other people it's okay. So we know what the function of body hair is. We know that the function isn't as important as it used to be, presumably. We know that it's a made-up thing to have or not have body hair and what part of your body. And we also know that even though you've decided now not to care about all of that, that it's still internalized. It still maybe makes you feel a bit uncomfortable if you quote-unquote forgot to shave, because some people don't feel like it's necessary to shave unless they're going to a networking event, or unless they're going on a date, or unless just it depends on who you're going to be around. So then they don't groom for themselves, but they groom for how other people will perceive them. The same counts for when you're in a long-term relationship. Some people call it getting lazy, which I don't fuck with, but they say that they get lazy because they don't spend as much time grooming their body hair as they did before their partner was locked down. So then you can see that you don't do it for yourself, you do it for somebody else. And a lot of people have problems with grooming. Like if you remove the body hair constantly, it can get irritated. There are different things that can happen. Ingrown hairs, it can get a rash. Sometimes if you weren't careful, if the equipment that you use wasn't clean enough or something like that, you can even get infections. But then even when people experience all of that, they still choose to continue grooming for other people. And what we propose is that we shift the idea of grooming as a chore and just have it as a form of, like, purely as a form of self-expression. So just as a lot of people do with their head hair, so they spend a whole day, and now I'm talking about people with curly hair because of course that's what I have most experience in. We spend a lot of time on our hair and we clean it, we choose our products carefully, we make sure that it has the perfect curl pattern. We some people like frizz, some people don't like frizz, so then you buy your products accordingly so it looks exactly the way that you feel best in. And honestly, I love that. I love spending time with my hair. I love taking care of my hair. And now I'm talking about my head hair. I love it when it looks exactly the way I want it to look. I like how I can change my attitude based on how it ended up looking. If it's a bit more defined, I guess, because I do like a little bit of frizz. But if it's ultra defined, then I'm like, all right, today I'm going to go for the ultra defined look and the ultra defined personality, and just, I don't know, I think it's very playful. I even write poems about my hair. I have a long poem about a week of curls. Anyway, so we spend a lot of energy on our head hairs, but why don't we spend the same amount of energy on the rest of our body hairs? There's like Instagram trends that they put glitter or flowers and beards, and then of course it also goes to like the armpits. I don't know about pubic hair. I haven't really specifically searched for that, but if anybody remembers or if anybody watched Scary Movie, first of all, shame on us, but second of all, there's a scene in which they like do a pageant, I think, and then Miss Ting walks down the aisle and goes back, and she has long ass armpit hairs and long ass pubic hairs with and they're all braided and they have beads in them. And when we were younger, or when the movie came out, that was hilarious, because that's like an exaggeration of something that women aren't supposed to have or do. And I honestly thought that was really cool, even as a kid that still had the idea that feminine presenting people were supposed to be bald everywhere except for on their head. I thought that was hilarious and really cool, and not hilarious in a ha what a stupid person type of way, but just like as a why don't we do that? So yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we decide to treat the rest of our hair as a way that we can show how playful we are, or if you're a type of person who really likes to spend time on the whole look, the whole package, on I'm a very careful person, or I like to wash and style everything, then you can do that. And another thing that Shadi and I talked about is that you don't have to choose what you're going to be. So you don't have to choose like, I'm always going to be feminine or I'm always going to be masculine, because as I said before, everybody has masculine energy and feminine energy, and you can choose to tap into one or the other or both at any given time, just whatever you feel most comfortable with. So if at a certain time you feel most comfortable with tapping into your feminine energy and you feel like you really need that, then by all means just do whatever you need to do to feel like you're celebrating that feminine energy that you're craving, but the same counts for your masculine energy. And this is like literally whoever you are, regardless of who other people say that you are. So when you're born, they decide for you if you're a man or a woman. So regardless of that, regardless of what other people assume about you for the rest of your life, just wake up, think about, today I feel like this, then do that. And it goes a long way. So it has to do with grooming, it has to do with the way you choose to dress. And Shari was even saying that she has realized that before she used to be very in tune with her feminine energy primarily, and a little bit of her masculine energy, but then she kind of discovered the magic of the masculine energy as well, and she became really drawn to it, and she really wanted to explore her masculine energy and what it meant for her, and explore it in different ways of dressing, different ways of cutting her hair, different ways of doing her makeup, and grooming, which is what we're talking about. So it's exciting, you can just do whatever you want, and the only problem is the way people will perceive you, and that people assume that they're allowed to tell you what they feel about the way you look, even though it's none of their business. Just do you, and that other people, do what they gotta do as well. Before I did this episode, I wasn't even sure how to approach it, so as a person I am, I went online, I read a lot of articles, I watched a lot of videos on what people think about body hair. I tried to look up as many different types of videos as I could, or different points of view, I guess. And one thing that I did come across was that a lot of people were very uniform in what the expectations were in a Western society. And some of the people literally saying that they thought it was a good thing that men do this and women do that. And other people wanted to challenge that, but then you still, because of the internalization of everything, you still feel a certain type of way in the way that you choose to present yourself. And some people are way more comfortable having armpit hair but absolutely no leg hair. Or some people actually don't care about their leg hair as much as long as their armpit hair isn't there and visible. So it really is a form of personal preference. And if some people go around and they don't mind their leg hair or their armpit hair at all, like me, then that's fine too. But I recently also did my eyebrows because I was just curious. I do sometimes mess around with my eyebrows. Most of the time I don't really care as much what they look like. But I saw my cousin get her eyebrows done, and I was like, yo, you look like such a bad bitch, and I want that too. So I made an appointment and went to the brow place, and she did my eyebrows, and let me tell you, my eyebrows looked awesome. I looked just like, I don't know, I was even behaving differently. But now that it's been a few weeks and my eyebrows have gone back to normal the way I'm used to it, I don't feel worse or anything. I just feel like myself, and it was nice to have experimented with that, to be like, oh yeah, this is what my eyebrow looks like when I get it done by a professional. And I liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I tapped into it. I really leaned into that boss bitch energy. But now I feel very comfortable with the eyebrows that I have currently. I don't experiment as much with the rest of my body hair because I don't feel any different if I have shaven legs or if I have hairy legs. I actually find my leg hairs quite funny because of all of those years of shaving and incessantly removing body hair and waxing and all of that stuff. Sometimes I would even like go back after I've waxed and then pluck the remaining hairs so I have 100% smooth legs. But because of all of that I did in the past, my hairs grow in their own way. They're all very unique. They all decide if they want to grow downwards, sideways, upwards. Maybe they start growing in one direction and then they decide to turn to the other direction. So I don't know, hairs like do you, and I don't mind it. I think it's funny. I like it. But some people are very disturbed by it. They want all of the hairs to look uniform, or they don't want any hairs at all. And if it does bother you, then first of all, ask yourself why it bothers you so much. And if it's per se the hair and the way that you see yourself, or is it the way that you're afraid other people will see you with the hairs that you have? But I do highly encourage everybody, regardless of what type of hair it is, if it's facial hair, why does it bother you? If you have enough of it or if you don't have any of it, why does it bother you when other people decide to have the hair that they have in the way that they have it? Why does it bother you when you see somebody with hair on their backs? Or why does it bother you when you don't see someone with enough hair on their heads? It's a weird concept, hair, and the politics behind hair. And I hope that one day we could all move on to just accepting that hair grows the way it does, and that instead of it being a thing to groom in a specific way because somebody else said we have to, that we can see it as a fun part of our body that doesn't necessarily serve a very specific function, but we get to have fun with it and let it really exude that energy that we wanted to exude in a specific day or period of our life. And I get that it is easier said than done, especially if you're used to body hair looking a certain way on certain people, and also if you've always done it a specific way to the point that you're just used to it and you don't mind it and you're more comfortable looking a specific way. But then at least you could follow Instagram pages in which the people do wear their body hair in a different way that you're used to, and in very artistic and beautiful ways. Sometimes they're also not specifically focusing on the body hair but just on the model, and on the environment or the setup of the photograph, and they just happen to have body hair in a place that you aren't used to. So if you just follow more of those pages, if you expose yourself to more different ways of wearing body hair, then you can really learn to appreciate it. And at a certain point, it just becomes normal to see different people having different body hairs, just the way that it's normal to see people rocking different hairstyles. But that's up to us, what we want to do. I thoroughly enjoy seeing people just be their best selves. It warms my heart. And I also know that Shadi shares the same sentiment, because we talk about this, I wouldn't say frequently, but from time to time, and how ridiculous it is that people really, really want you to conform to an idea that they didn't even come up with, but somebody else, and they're like, yes, this is the truth and this is how everybody should look. But yeah, just challenge yourself, just expose yourself to more exciting and different things, and you'll see that on the long run, you'll become a way more open-minded and accepting and happier person in general. Alrighty, I hope that was interesting, or at the very least entertaining. And remember last time that we didn't have music in the outro? Well, this time we do. But before I get into the music, I did want to talk again about the links that we talked about the last time. Last time we didn't have music because we wanted to focus on supporting our communities. We were collecting links from all of the 6 islands. And a lot of people helped us in gathering those links. So they're all in our link tree. But if you do have more links, then of course, send it to us. We'll add all of them in our link tree and we'll keep all of them there as well. So then people can donate whenever they can, or whatever they can. Okay, so for the music today, when I discovered her, thanks to my friend, of course, I didn't discover her by myself. Everything that we do here, we do in collaboration with people because everybody is amazing. Anyway, so I found out about her. This friend let me listen to one song, which was super fun. And I immediately knew that this was definitely the person that we had to approach. It was very last minute and she was so cooperative. She's just the best. So this time she worked on a song. It's a cover song and it's called Agua. By the way, the artist's name is Sushaira Kerpens. We're gonna link all of her stuff in the description, so there's no worries about that. But she's working a lot with Crossheart, and we'll link them as well. She's doing the vocals for them, and may I just say that her voice is so angelic and so beautiful. If you hear this song, then you will fall in love with her voice, and it's for a good reason, because she's like so talented and so good. She's studying music in Finland. Could you imagine? Anyway, so she is a vocalist. She is a songwriter. She basically just does it all. And she's, I don't remember if I just mentioned it, but she's hoping to release an EP soon. So definitely follow her for when she does release her new music. But the song today is not the only type of song that she makes. As I mentioned, she also does stuff in collaboration with other people. So there's Crossheart, there's her stuff. Look her up on YouTube, look up her name on YouTube, and then you'll find just a fountain of different songs that she worked on, and they're all great. But I hope for today that this song will be a good representation of just her vibe, and just so beautiful, you'll love it. Anyway, thanks for listening. We hope that you'll be here the next time as well. Shadi will definitely be here the next time. I hope that I could keep you company and that you enjoyed it. Otherwise, just wait for next time and then it'll be the two of us again. Love you. Bye.
Círculos, círculos, no hay principio ni final. Todo empieza donde tiene que acabar. Círculos, círculos, no es mañana, no es atrás. y sentí, mucho sentí, mucho sentí, escuchar el silencio natural y sentí, mucho sentí, mucho sentí, escuchar el silencio natural que dice agua, 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 mi elemento, agua, me quita la sed, agua, alivia mis penas.